Super Mario Bros., a timeless game that spawned a revolutionary franchise that still remains popular, even in the present day. But around the turn of the millennium, as the original game approached its Sweet 16, it was obvious that of the two Super Mario Brothers, one brother was more popular. Compared to his brother, Mario was the one that was primarily hogging the spotlight, being the main starring character in almost every single game in the franchise. Meanwhile, in the background, almost literally, was his little brother Luigi, who still had yet a game to call his own. That doesn't count. But once the new age arrived and video games began to evolve with it, Luigi finally got his chance, becoming the star in a much more haunting take on any other Mario game: Luigi's Mansion. In this episode of Cartridges and Consoles, we'll take a look at Luigi's first real standalone adventure, and see how it was a revolutionary step in not just Luigi's portfolio, but also in the Mario franchise as a whole, with how different it was compared to its predecessors. Luigi's Mansion was a launch title for the Nintendo GameCube, releasing in North America on November 18th, 2001. The story of the game is simple. Luigi won a free mansion in a contest he seemingly never entered, which for people living in Massachusetts is like winning the lottery. Let's go! However, upon arriving at the mansion to meet with his brother, he finds out it's more of a fixer-upper, and that the previous residents haven't left yet. He also meets up with a retired Ghostbuster by the name of Professor Elvin E. Gadd, who explains that the mansion had just appeared recently and had been infested with ghosts that he studies. After receiving his modified vacuum cleaner known as the Poltergust 3000, it's up to you and Luigi to clean out the mansion of all its ghostly residents, collect as much cash as you can, and find your brother before the sun rises once again. Now, by far the biggest positive of Luigi's Mansion is the wholly unique experience it provides. Before 2001, whenever someone thought of a Mario game, the immediate thing that popped into their head was a platformer game with a more happy-go-lucky style, having brighter colors and uplifting music. Well, throw all of those tropes in the garbage, because Luigi's Mansion is not that. The game is unlike any other Mario game released beforehand, not having any semblance of a platformer, and having a more eerie and haunting tone throughout that was foreign for the franchise. The music and sound effects are much more creepy and cryptic, all the ghosts littered through the mansion look extremely sinister, and even the commercials for the game implying that
"You've got one night to save Mario from the supernatural"
is scary to think about. And this tone that the game gives off is constantly showcased throughout, whether it's that sinister when the game starts up, one of the few cryptic messages on the menu screens, or a major plot point in the game itself, you are almost constantly experiencing a feeling of dread as you scale the mansion. The game even was supposed to be darker and scarier than this, with a 24-hour time limit at a very haunting game over screen, both of which were sadly cut before release. Still though, even today, this game is one of very few Mario games to have this kind of tone, and was really the first one to include such a drastic step away from the norm, which really establishes how big of a deal it is. Plus, even though there is this sense of eeriness, the game doesn't shy away from being more lighthearted at times, especially with its witty dialogue present at certain points throughout the adventure, and what I consider to be the most iconic Mario voice line, all of which can help break up most of the drab parts. The game also has a dynamic sense of challenge and a varying level of completion status that will leave anyone grinding the game for hours to achieve everything there is to do. Throughout the mansion, you'll find cash littered everywhere, whether in the form of golden coins laying around, gemstones received from chests, or pearls dropped by ghosts. All of this cash gets tallied up after you've beaten a boss, and depending on how much money you've earned by the end of the game, you'll get a different rank and a different mansion. And don't assume it's as easy as it sounds, as some of the methods to getting the most money possible take knowing every in and out of this haunted mansion. From every chest, to every secret collectible, to every nook and cranny where money could be hiding. Thankfully, if you are unable to get all of a treasure and the best rank on your first time around, there is a new Game Plus option called the Hidden Mansion that is slightly more challenging, yet will give you more money and rewards if you're able to complete it, which is just another way this game is considered heavily replayable. On top of this, there's an extra completion statistic in the form of an individual ranking system for the majority of the ghosts you collect. Over 20 of the ghosts hidden within the mansion are classified as a portrait ghost, meaning they were one of Professor Egad's prized possessions that hung in his gallery you visit at the beginning of the game. Depending on how well you do in capturing these portrait ghosts, you can earn a different color picture frame, either bronze, silver, or gold for that ghost, all of which offer a different design for the portrait ghost in question. Add on the completionist factor of collecting all 50 boos scattered throughout every section of the mansion, and you have on your plate a game with so many different factors for completion status that will either drive a completionist mad or provide a lot of content for anyone who wants to play. Now, if this sounds like too much for someone, however, the game thankfully isn't that long, averaging around 7 hours to beat without trying to get every single collectible. However, the game isn't without its flaws, with one of the problems revolving around the controls. While yes, this game was a launch title for a console with a brand new style controller to Nintendo beforehand, it still has some noticeable issues in terms of movement. You'll mainly experience these issues when catching ghosts around the mansion. The game tells you that when catching a ghost, moving the control stick in the opposite direction they're moving will make it easier to catch them. Which is true, but only to an extent, as it doesn't seem to work all of the time. These clunky controls also rear their ugly head when it comes to the Game Boy Horror, your pocket companion for navigating this mansion, which for some awkward reason controls like a tank when you go into first-person mode to try and scan something. Also, this may have just been an issue I had, but EGAD tells you to use the scan function on the Game Boy Horror to try and find out the optimal way to catch certain portrait ghosts, which either is impossible to do without missing 100 times, or gives you no helpful information on how to catch the ghost in question. Lastly, there is one part of the game that can come off as annoying for most players, and that is collecting and capturing the boos throughout the mansion. In order to successfully capture a boo, you have to try and suck it up before it leaves the room you're in. A task that is much harder than it sounds, as in most instances, the boo will go through the wall and enter into a different room. This wouldn't be a massive deal breaker if there wasn't the possibility the boo could go into a room that is either a long walk away, or worse, is one you cannot even enter yet. This small yet sizable problem makes it much more of a hassle trying to collect all of the boos in the game, and puts a massive damper on what could have realistically been considered a very neat feature. Overall though, Luigi's Mansion is a stellar entry in the Mario franchise that not only gave Luigi the much needed spotlight, but also stood out from every other entry that released beforehand. With the lack of platformer elements and a much more eerie tone throughout, it doesn't feel like a traditional Mario game, which allows players that are familiar with the franchise to experience something entirely different. Plus, the game, for being as short as it is, has a substantial amount of content that will get anyone hooked, especially those who are trying to earn the elusive completion status. While there are some minor snags and annoyances, it still is a game that anyone should try out, whether you're a diehard Nintendo fan or someone wanting to get into the Mario franchise, but is looking for something a little bit different. Luigi's Mansion on the Nintendo GameCube gets my Luigi patented rating of 9 cartridges out of 10.